Good evening. My name is Clara Juice and I welcome you to today's hybrid workshop organized by the S&D group within the European Parliament about how to design artificial intelligence for all. This is a particularly timely discussion because the European Parliament will soon enter the final stages of negotiations of its position on a regulation for artificial intelligence in the EU. A piece of legislation proposed last year by the European Commission and the S&D Group. It has a number of priorities that it wants to see included in the final text. The aim of today's discussion is therefore to listen to the perspectives of all experts and participants on different issues being touched upon, in order to help the social democratic family in the European House of Democracy to better shape its position and key priorities, making sure that civil society at large and on a local level as well get to have their say in this process. So today's event is being transmitted live simultaneously with 4 workshops taking place in 4 countries. We have one here happening in Malta, and I thank everyone for joining us here this evening. We also have another one happening in Italy. Ciao Italia, benvenuti. Ciao. We have another one happening in Denmark. I allowed myself to learn, and I hope I say this right. It's go aften Denmark. Did I say it right?
Yeah, go aften.
Go aften. Hola, España. Our last country is Spain, joining us as well. Hello, Spain. Hola. So we, of course, have a lot of people watching us this evening from all European countries. So we welcome you all and thank you for joining us. In each country, we are going to be having a 1-hour workshop. And these workshops are going to be happening in local languages. As an audience, you have all had the opportunity to already select which workshop you would like to join. But allow me to introduce the topics of each workshop by introducing now our 4 MEPs all participating in the workshop, 1 in each country. I would like to introduce Alex Ajus-Saliba, who is, of course, the Vice President of the S&D Group responsible for digital policy. Alex, you are here with us this evening, and Malta will actually be focusing on how to protect rights when it comes to artificial intelligence. What do you wish that comes out today from the workshop?
So first of all, welcome from Malta, from Paola, from the Malta College for Art, Science and Technology here. Today is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for the 4 panels in 4 different member states. A message from our Socialist and Democrats family that we want to put out there is to have an open approach when it comes to discussing all digital dossiers, all digital files, but especially such an important piece of legislation which will be affecting the lives of our citizens. And as a political family, here today we are not discussing a futuristic dossier. We are discussing something which is affecting on a daily basis the choices of our consumers, the fundamental rights of our citizens. Therefore, it is really important in this whole process of negotiations, in this dialogue that we have within the European Parliament, at Council level, at Commission level, to do it right. And one of the most important aspects that we will be discussing here today at MCAST, Paula, is the issue of enforcement, is the issue of giving the right information to our citizens to be able to enforce their rights when such important decisions are being taken by artificial intelligence. Therefore, today we have a wonderful panel here with academics, with students, with stakeholders who will be dissecting this subject in an easy way so that our citizens, those who are viewing this session, will be able to understand what we are doing.
Very good, thank you. We promise you everybody's going to make a lot of effort to try to speak about this subject in the simplest ways, and I am sure that was the general rule across the board. So please do stay with us, and I hope you engage yourself in each workshop. I would now like to go to Italy. There we have Brando Benifei. Brando is the S&D MEP, Artificial Intelligence Act spokesperson. Hi, Brando. I have a question for you, if you can hear us. Because in Italy, they are using the Big Brother concept to address the workshop today. How to avoid AI. And in fact, of course, how to avoid AI as an intruder, not to avoid AI. How to avoid AI as an intruder. So Brando, I know you're very passionate about this subject and working thoroughly on the legislative. Is Brando with us?
Sì, io sono il relatore del regolamento, quindi sono quello che sta negoziando il testo all'interno del Parlamento europeo, lavorando insieme ad Alex e agli altri colleghi eurodeputati. Sono impegnato, come ora si diceva, a evitare che il regolamento sulla intelligenza artificiale non riesca ad affrontare i veri problemi rispetto al controllo sociale, all'impatto sui diritti fondamentali, al rischio di una società del controllo e di, diciamo, di sfruttamento dei dati personali senza invece una consapevolezza e una capacità delle persone di poter essere al centro invece dello sviluppo dell'intelligenza artificiale. In particolare nel nostro workshop approfondiremo proprio questi aspetti, cioè come far sì che l'utilizzo dell'intelligenza artificiale sia un'opportunità e non un rischio per diversi ambiti, quelli appunto della libertà personale, del mondo del lavoro, della questione relativa ai diritti fondamentali, ecco, e quindi questo è uno degli ambiti su cui come gruppo stiamo lavorando con particolare enfasi nel negoziare il testo del regolamento, perché vogliamo essere sicuri che ci sia uno spazio per sviluppare un'economia e una forza, diciamo, anche di crescita di un ecosistema dell'intelligenza artificiale europea, ma rispettando non solo i diritti fondamentali delle persone, ma anche la capacità di mantenere la fiducia delle persone. Siamo in una democrazia, senza fiducia non ci può essere introduzione di nuove tecnologie. Questo è un po' il senso del nostro lavoro.
Grazie, molto grazie Brando. We now go to Copenhagen in Denmark, where we have the S&D MEP, Internal Market and Consumer Protection Spokesperson, Christel Schaldemose. Hello, Christel.
Hello, and good evening here from Copenhagen.
Good evening to you too. Christel, in Denmark, you are tackling AI from a safety point of view. What will you be bringing to the table in your workshop?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say that we are here today hosted by the trade union of the engineers in Denmark, and it's situated in a very beautiful place, but you can't see it because of the darkness. But anyway, what we're going to discuss today is that in the AI proposal from the EU Commission, they made a risk-based approach to AI. But we would like to discuss, is that enough, or do we need to have more? Do we need to have some common principles? Do we need to give users some rights when we're talking about AI? And today with me, I have a very good panel. First and foremost, I have Jens Bostrup, who is going to be our moderator, and then I have two professors in AI, both of them. Thomas, they call Thomas both of them as well. And then I have one representing Nikolai, representing the Danish Chamber for Commerce. So I believe, and then we have good people from NGOs behind us. So I'm looking very much forward to have a good discussion and report back to you on what we think we need to do more and better.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christel. And finally, we go to Léon in Spain. We have MEP Jonas Fernandez, who's understanding, basically the workshop in Spain is understanding AI across the board. And this is what the workshop in Spain will be about, education and understanding of the AI. Jonas, or are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Thank you very much for being with us. And I would like to ask you how and what do you wish to bring out in your workshop today?
Okay, perfect. Now, first, thank you so much for the invitation. Good evening. And of course, it's an honor to participate in this multi-location event, to discuss the future and the present of the artificial intelligence. As you may know, the Spanish member who should be here organizing this event indeed in León should be Ivan García del Blanco. But finally, he cannot be with us because he is unfortunately on a sick leave. So I would like, and I'm sure that all of you wish him a prompt recovery, and we will do our best to conduct the debate in Spain. Most of our panelists are in León. I am very close to León, but I am in Oviedo, but less than 1 hour from León. And I would like to share with you some ideas that Ivan shared to me, because at the end of the day, he is our specialist on artificial intelligence. And Ivan thinks that literacy serves to ensure that all citizens of Europe, and particularly those who have to operate artificial intelligence systems, have a sufficient level of skills, knowledge, and understanding on the benefit and risk that artificial intelligence implies. While we are, indeed, Ivan and Brando and the rest of our colleagues in the Parliament are negotiating the position of the European Parliament on the Artificial Intelligence Act, AI literacy is to be included as a concrete obligation into the regulation in Europe. People, and especially young and elderly, should understand the opportunities and risks of the digital revolution. And to this end, we need to enter into a new age of digital knowledge, what Ivan likes to call a new age of digital enlightenment. An adequate artificial intelligence literacy is now increasingly necessary for citizens, for all generations to participate in society and benefit from accessible digital services to learn, play, work, and progress in our lives. And to discuss on this matter, to analyze maybe with a more cultural or more education perspective, we will debate with an excellent expert. As I said, most of them in León, in Oviedo, but I am sure that we will have a very, very brilliant debate about how we could enlarge the literacy on AI. Thank you so much.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Jonas. Thank you for being with us as well. So, as you can see, back to our audience now, we will dive into 4 different but equally important discussions of the legislative surrounding AI. In order to seize its full potential to benefit society, we need to ensure that if ever our rights are compromised or affected, we have enough tools and mechanisms to seek their protection as well as compensation. And this is mainly on these 3 things. That despite the many possible and positive uses of AI, our rights to privacy and protection of personal data must be respected, be it at the workplace, be it when you're looking for a job or walking down the street, or simply even if we're having a bad day. Secondly, that even though not all AI systems may present the same risks or dangers, there should be a common safety net in the EU about how they should be developed in line with our principles and values. And finally, that given the great impact that AI will and is already having in all our lives, not only all those who need to comply with legal requirements about it, but also the rest of us who will live with its use throughout our lives, have a sufficient level of understanding and knowledge about what AI is, how it works, and why it can make such a difference in the quality of our future. And this is what the S&D group in the European Parliament, led by its co-rapporteur, Brando Benifei, is fighting to achieve. Ultimately, it wants to guarantee that in the European Union, we are designing artificial intelligence for all. So before I let you all begin, I would like to say hello to each moderator and to introduce them myself. In Malta, we have Alexei, Alexei De Bono, Director and Chief Operating Officer of Idea Group. Alexei, why do you think you were chosen to moderate this panel? What's your relationship with AI?
First of all, I've been taught by one of our panelists here, another Alexei.
Yeah, that's why I got confused. And I was looking, because we have Alex, Alexei, and Alexei.
Exactly. I've been studying AI, I think, for the past 10 years. I run a data science business intelligence company, so it's something really close to my heart and something I love. I think it's really cool what we're discussing here. Finally, we're taking such a powerful tech and making it accessible while still being protected. I think this is the time to establish trust, finally.
Very good. Thank you, Alexei. I would now like to go to Italy, where we have the journalist for Italian Tech and Wired Italy, Andrea Signorella. Hello, Andrea.
Hi.
Hi, Andrea. What about you? What is your relationship with AI, and why are you moderating today's panel?
Well, I'm really passionate about artificial intelligence and about the risks that it poses to our society. And it has been a lot of years that I'm covering this subject, so here I am.
Thank you, Andrea. In Denmark, we have journalist Jens Bostrup. Hello, Jens.
Good evening, Clara.
Good evening. Jens, what about your knowledge and understanding of AI, and what are you trying to achieve in today's workshop?
I'm trying to achieve that we can have some concrete suggestions from our panel of experts and the stakeholder, and give that to Crystal, and hopefully she can use that input in the further work.
Very good. Thank you, Jens. And finally, another journalist in Spain, we have Javi Vega. Hello, Javi.
Hello, good evening.
Tell us a little bit about your knowledge of AI and how you perceive to conduct your workshop today.
I think my colleagues is very interesting at explaining about the importance of the AI.
Javi, I may ask you to, sorry, we're not hearing your sound, so there may be a technical problem. Can you try speaking again?
Sorry?
Okay, we cannot currently hear Javi, but that is the moderator of the Spanish panel, which I hope now will get back with its technical issues and conduct the workshop fully. I will leave it all in the good hands of our moderator, and then we will come back in exactly 1 hour at the end of each workshop, where we will then have our final suggestions and what came out of each topic.
Claire? Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to the lineup that we have here. Thank you to the guests this evening. And
buenas tardes.
Workshop on
esta tarde estamos
remedies. And
estamos en Léon, en esta magnífica casa de botines, este edificio genial, para discutir acerca de la ilustración digital y la inteligencia digital.
A lawyer who specializes in IT, data protection, IP, and she focuses on AI and disruptive tech. Next to her,
es que ya es imposible, no se puede hablar.
Professor of AI at the University of Malta.
Hombre, no podemos hablar con esto así todo el rato.
AI space here. Next we have Annalise. AI, cybersecurity and DLT. And finally, Dr. Ian Gauci, a lawyer and key expert in relation to the tech and fintech space here in Malta, highly active in the AI space.
Sono il gruppo socialisti democratici del Parlamento europeo. Come già stato
finally, we will start with the first question with MEP Abdus Salim. You made a very good point earlier that we are dealing with something that we can't ignore anymore. It's a highly powerful thing.
Pero que se baje el sonido. Estoy escuchando a Italia, a los malteses al menos. O sea,
simultáneo real.
parlare di fondamentali dell'essere umano, quali limiti.
Ahora. No.
Mucho mejor. ¿Ahora?
No.
Ahora. ¿Ahora? Sí, claro.
Ahora.
Sí, Jonás.
Genial.
Yo creo que tu
Jonás.
sonido no está.
Jonás está muteado ahora mismo, yo creo.
Sí, está muteado.
Y nosotros también.
Sí.
Sí, pero bueno, yo creo que es de muteados de cara a la...
Pero supuestamente se retransmite también el debate nuestro, ¿no? Debería tener
Sí, se está retransmitiendo también.
Por eso. Deberíamos tener sonido para que salga lo nuestro también.
Creo que ahora se me oye, sí.
O sea, creo que tienen problemas de que no podemos escuchar a Jonás sin escuchar al resto.
Sí, Jonás, ¿nos oyes?
Ok, no.
No,
porque Estudio León...
¿Tú estás muteado? Seguro, yo creo. Ahora no, pero...
No, sí, pone
Jonás,
Estudio
¿nos
León
oyes?
muteado.
No,
Hola.
porque no hace ni un gesto.
Sí, a ver.
Ahora puede ser.
Hola.
Jonás.
Hola.
Ahora, te oímos. ¿Nos oyes?
Sí, ahora.
Yes, I can hear you. We can see your desktop. I beg your pardon. I was trying to get in. I was listening to the session in Malta. Good evening. We continue this session. We are located at this wonderful location in Léon, in Casa Botines. Jonás Fernández is an economist from Asturias, and he's a member of parliament from 2014 and spokesperson of the Social Democrat group. We also have with us Victoria Balbuena. She's responsible for the INCIBE. And after working in the financial center, she worked in the United States, and she centered her professional activity in finances, and now she's starting a new career in security. We also have a writer. She has published 2 works of art with significant transcendence, and she has carried out several artistic writing workshops, and she has received several awards. And to my left, I have Laura. She is a researcher in artificial intelligence. She studied physics and philosophy, and she has a master in astrophysics. I don't know who wants to start. Do you want to start, Rocío? The topic that brings us today here, which is security. First of all, I would like to thank the invitation to take this subject so seriously. I wanted to start talking about literacy. I wanted to talk about my philosophy background, and I cannot help thinking about the Enlightenment. It's an opportunity to illustrate that our ideas and past movements and critical analysis of them has an application in today's society. In this sense, IA literacy implies empowerment of the citizenship in Europe through the knowledge of the digital world. I don't want to say only, or I don't want to refer only to the knowledge of itself, the digital itself, but also the problems that it brings with it, and the implications it has in our lives and democracy. This implies, in a second step, it's an awareness from the citizens that we have a serious responsibility in this historical moment that we are going through. We are making decisions and we are setting the base for policies in the next decades. It's only possible through an enlightened movement. We need a citizenship able to make their own judgments or their own decisions and not follow or be under the regulations of something that comes imposed from other locations. That would be not an enlightenment in the digitalization. I believe that enlightenment is something that is going to happen. It's inevitable. It's another branch because it's impossible to have an ethical project without a population which has enough knowledge about the process that we are living and the changes we are undergoing. We need a citizenship who is empowered to reflect with knowledge in this area, and I think it's part of the European spirit. I would like you to remind you that these talks are being translated into other languages. I want to thank everybody the possibility to be here. The truth is, I believe that we are living an important moment. Is something similar to what the Industrial Revolution meant in its time. It's such a dramatic change in so many aspects. Societies need to know the importance of the developments that are taking place. I am in favor of what you were saying, Lucia, because it's not only about getting knowledge. We need to get skills. We need to get a general knowledge of the meaning of all this, what kind of opportunities this brings to us, but also what kind of consequences. It could become a real nightmare, and there are places where these nightmares especially in literature, it could appear dystopic, but they are real. And it's about time that Europe started setting a step ahead in taking the reins and control of this situation. These changes happen at a breakneck speed, and it's difficult to assimilate by human beings. We need to be able to reflect transversally, to reach agreements, to deal with negotiations, and to understand fully what these advances mean. Victoria, from the administrative point, how are you looking at this? This has an enormous transcendence for citizens. Yes. We from INCIBE, you know that the focus is always on the people. IA is a technology, is here to stay. It's here to transform, to make changes. It's, again, at a breakneck speed. And we need the citizenship to adapt to these changes. We totally agree with that. We are aware that we need to teach citizens. You can get access to any of our portals for children. protect your business, and we are all working really hard so that these tools that are appearing we are able to use them in a conscious way and in a safe way. Jonas, how do you see it from the other side of the range, the mountain range? As I said in the previous intervention, I'm here in place of Ivan, who is the person who has committed every one of us. Ivan is the person who specializes in this topic in the European environment, and he knows a lot about the financial subjects. There are some incognitas about how or which is going to be the center of IA and the meaning of this legislation and other financial considerations. Before artificial intelligence that has changed notably all the ethical standards, values, the values we had in the European Union. And there are some activities that we cannot tolerate. We don't let other people read our letters, but we did. We allow other companies to read our algorithms. We are a bit late. We allow them to listen through our phones. This capitalism of surveillance, of control, which is creating more than uncertainty. It is undoubtedly having consequences in democracy. Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, is posing a threat, and it's announcing a big improvement in data. And we need to think about the regulation to be able to focus on, as you were saying in your first interventions, this revolution, we don't really know the dimension of it, and we have to focus on democracy and civil rights. We have become immersed in a kind of Big Brother where regulators, we have been one step behind, and now we see a new reality where we haven't solved the concept of artificial intelligence, and we have new challenges. I wanted to say something in relation to something Jonas was saying in relationship to the capitalism of surveillance, when he mentions that we are being listened through our phones. I don't know if you know about this. This has direct connection with the digital enlightenment, this accelerated process which is happening very quickly without any kind of knowledge from the side of the citizenship. From the year 2000 to 2020, there has been a dramatic change in which our data has become equal to gold, and citizenship were not conscious, they not were aware of the implications. We could have taken action much before, but we are trying really hard to reach a legislation. We are pioneers in this task to prevent this from going any further and to stop the problems we have been having until now. I think this proposal, the regulation of AI, is the only opportunity we have to abandon this surveillance capitalism and to start with an artificial intelligence which is respectful. And this is only possible through knowledge and through an illustration. Our world has changed totally. I don't want to blame the citizenship, but it wouldn't have been the same if we had had the knowledge, for example, of what Google was doing. I think we are in a state of shock, and suddenly we are realizing, we are aware of what is going on and the consequences of the things that have been happening. Suddenly it has reached a point where we don't know how to analyze it. You started talking about philosophy, and I think you are right. We have to look back to philosophers. We need to ask ourselves questions and to know what we really want and which consequences this has. This reverts positively in citizenship. From 1999, we have 40 hours work per week. Good. We live better with the technological advances. What is going to happen in the future when trucks can run on their own? Are we going to have surveillance to see if it's working properly? We have to put all these topics on the table. To be able to do that, we have to have that knowledge. We need to know why and its consequences. If this can make our lives better, how can we go about it? These questions that I have been reflecting on that have to do with the advances in technology and digitalization, I believe that in the case of Spain, we are in Léon, which is one of the places where demography is posing a problem. I think we can improve quality of life, the quality of workers, working towards the repopulation of certain locations. We are experiencing a transversal transformation. It's also a crisis. We don't only have to think on technology. We are going through an environmental crisis. If the Industrial Revolution led us to leave all these areas empty and abandoned because people went to big cities to establish in cities where everything was moving towards the future, we now see that there is a black cloud over the future. We should make use of these advances to see where it's taking us. Maybe there is a revolution in place where we could use this in a context which is different from the past. The objective, the purpose now is to rehabilitate these places with a regulation that thinks about workers, about syndicates, trade unions. I think it's an interesting debate. My colleagues are leaving me without any arguments to debate. These two colleagues are well informed, and from my point of view, the focus is on the information we need. If the population is aware of the consequences, we can prevent bad uses of technology, and we can stop those people with bad intentions to make profit on them. We shouldn't be experimenting if we don't know the consequences we are facing. We are talking about a hammer given as a present to a child, which is a wonderful tool, but it can also make a lot of harm. So citizenship, we are still children dealing with technology, and we need training, we need awareness, and we need leadership from experts and people in the parliament who are already dealing with these subjects. If we are late, we should not let this train go faster than us, and we should get it on track and stop other problems from happening. We have to focus a lot on awareness, raising awareness, on teaching, on the training. So from INCIBE, we want to give access to not only artificial intelligence, but we have our knowledge, we lend it to businesses. Brussels is too far from us, Jonas. How can we advance in AI literacy and help all these people that are falling a step behind in digitalization? And furthermore, these technologies are very attractive. Everybody is dealing with this, but what's your point of view? I have to remark that when I said we are already late, the general feeling after having the opportunity to spend some time in Oxford this summer and talk with experts, it's true that we see reality in a way that we have already accepted. And that's what I said, we are already late. We know that artificial intelligence is not in developing the way it should. We are working on it, and the Parliament is fighting to encourage this direction of work. In many of our regions, artificial intelligence, as many other areas, the added value of the European regulation is very important. We cannot aspire to local regulations in a market or in an aspect of a life in a digital environment. We can't aspire to have a national regulation. We have to make we have to give our opinions. There may be different points of views, but this is a typical example where one of the regulations of the European Union makes it possible. A European framework is essential to regulate all the people or everybody who live in the European Union. These regulations have to be based on this illustration you were talking about. it has to be applied all over Europe. Europe has been leading in many areas, and the European Union is adding an added value to these talks and these regulations. Ivan and me, and we are in Spain, we're in Malta, in Turin, in Copenhagen, and maybe thanks to the technological advances, we are not so far as it was before. How can we advance so that this knowledge extends to the whole society? Maybe Victoria wants to continue, wants to start, because she always answers the questions. I don't mind. I don't mind to be the first to talk or the last. It's an interesting question. I wish I had the answer to the question. It's difficult to give an answer on how to help them. We have to give them the means and to help citizenship to have access to this media. Digitalization is okay. It should be the same for those who have access to it or for those who don't have an easy access to it. People who don't have the means to have access to these tools. We have to work in information and teaching, but we have to reach all areas in society. So nobody is left behind. So we have to work hard in every area of society and using the permeability of several institutions in society. And I like the mention of the previous industrial revolution, when people abandoned villages to go to the big cities. And I see that now there is a return to the basics, and there is a reverse movement, people going back to the country. So we need to trust agencies to the development of local areas. These people are impulsing and helping people to return to isolated areas. So we should prevent these areas from being isolated digitally and technologically. And this is an important part it's a challenge for the future. So we have, for example, to display 5G networks. This is going to help you. This is going to help us to make this technology more accessible and to inform people. It is not the same, the kind of connectivity you have in a big city or in the middle of the country. I think we are privileged in the European Union. We have an infrastructure which is outstanding, and we need to make the most of this technology, and artificial intelligence is an important part of it. It is true that it poses a risk, but it's also an opportunity to reach these people so they are not left behind. I agree totally with you. If we have to change this digital bridge because of origin or financial background, for age, I think the key is on make it compulsory somehow to consume, but to question ourselves why we are doing this, why it's going to be a benefit, and to what extent. I think this has to do with what we need to transmit in learning centers and training centers. It's happening, everything is happening so fast, and we need to question ourselves what is happening. We are like primitives in a new world. And this can give us plenty of opportunities, but we need to know how to use them to our advantage. We cannot allow these technological advances to make us slaves of the technology. And the person who can deal with this is going to dominate you in any way they want. So we need to say why. And I agree. And I think Spain is a good example of this. We have population, very low population in some places, but we have a network, telecommunication network, which is working well and is absolutely necessary. We need to go back to those deserted lands. When our ancestors left, they did so to live better. So those people who can't find a job, they are trying to find their own way in big cities, and they cannot do it. So technology can help you to do that without being isolated. Before, if you didn't live this land, you were isolated. We have to use this in a positive way. This permeability and this network shouldn't be limited by the absence of population. We have a good infrastructure to put this into place. I think these places can become places of interchange of ideas. It's also a problem in democracy. Extreme right is improving, is reaching further. There are lots of people who feel abandoned and left behind, and there are some who will take the opportunity to use this to their advantage. I think it's very important what you were talking about. I wanted to ask you how to carry on this illustration. When we talk about promoting illustration and the knowledge of digitalization in citizenship, we have a problem regarding AI. I think it's a problem of prejudice, and I think it has to do with how we think in the West world. Many people are afraid because they think it's very complicated. And I think it has to do with what we were talking about. It doesn't have to do with programmers. The capacity or the ability to be able to reflect critically on questions about the implication that IA is going to have in our lives. Every citizen should have the ability to reflect on this, on social topics. But we have this prejudice in the Western world because we see technology as something superior, as something complex and complicated. So we tend to think that this is only for a few. So we have to reflect in many areas. We can talk about feminism, about climate change, nationalisms, and people do well to give their opinion. Why don't they give their opinion on technology? So I think this illustration that should happen everywhere has to take place in people, especially those who feel left out. All the elderly, women, people with very little financial facilities. I think there are people who feel that digitalization has nothing to do with them, or they think they cannot deal with it. And of course they can deal with it. You don't have to be an expert. Obviously, a well-informed opinion is better, but not everybody has a clear idea on climate change, but we can give our opinion and we can have a debate on it. And then finally, I think we can create a mechanism that we have in democracy to ask people. They asked some citizens in Europe to give their opinion on the European Union, on climate change, so we can start processes of the debate to hear what people have to say about this. We have the mechanisms to do it. How do we make it profitable? How do we make this illustration profitable? We are already seeing that is very profitable for companies that are operating in IA. The truth is that this monopoly needs to be limited and regulated. And I think the comparatives with the first industrial revolution, there are big monopolies which are in control of the economy, and they can influence notably in the opinion, in the political debate. And it's happening, something similar was happening during the first revolution. So what can we do to minimize the impact of these lobbies and guarantee the survival? So this is in history books. So we have to create policies, competitive policies, and promote competitiveness and allow citizens to make the most of these new opportunities. And we shouldn't allow the businesses to get all the benefits. We have to do it again. Maybe these enterprises, these businesses, play with a specific advantage. They are able to perceive with all clarity in the last decades about privacy. The world in a digital context, it's still important, and it's been always important, but we need to correct, and this can give many opportunities. We are in Léon, we are in Asturias, we have demographic problems. And I want to be optimistic. Maybe we are going through the last waves in this first. We also have an economic problem, and there is also a big gap in gender. Only 1 in 3 graduate is a woman. Developers this sex I'm getting tired.
So what do you think about it? What do you think
about it, especially when you're now women. So I think we are a great example in this panel of trying to eliminate those characteristics, and it's very important that women are represented. And that's why I want to say congratulations to all people organizing this event, because I can see that my colleagues are women in this event, and sometimes I find on my own and they're just men working in security areas from different international companies. Of course, there is a gender gap in there, and we are not trying to break a trend overnight. But we are starting to be aware of the need that women are incorporated in these new fields, because it's very important to have diverse teams, because it is very beneficial and it generates solutions that are more global, are more globally based, and are better for all groups, social groups. So in the public administration, I think it kind of rings a bell. I think the European Union has started working on a directive that must be passed by all the parliaments of the member states, so that women can have a representation in the directive councils of the companies. They need to encourage that, so that we have that incorporation, and once that incorporation is completely solid, we can see that women are adding value, because companies having women in their executive board are more profitable. And also we have that empathy with, we are like caregivers. That's something within our DNA, and that's why companies are becoming more sustainable. Profitably sustainable, because companies are also generating wealth, and we shouldn't forget about it. We cannot forget that women are usually training, have a very important part when it comes to generating money in the economies. And when I talk about sustainable companies, I mean companies that are socially aware, and that's something that women now know how to do it. Recently, I had the privilege of being a coach in a specific training for women who are business women in Europe, and I realized that most of the women I've worked with start projects that, apart from considering an opportunity for the market, are addressing a social problem. So they are not trying to make money, actually, but they try to provide some value to society. They want to solve some problems that are being detected. And we can see that in women. Women usually foresee that before men. So I think that was very important what John Nance talked about. And I think there is a gender gap. And of course, we are doing some work in here. It was great that that legislation was approved in the European Parliament, so that women have their own representativity in administration committees, in small and big companies, because we need to be in different layers, in different levels. And of course, this will bring in a natural way that new generations start having feminine reference. And this is something that we are missing now, because usually when girls are asked, what do you want to do when you become an adult? They always say, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a teacher. And why? Why is this? Because all these professions are related to the women's field, because we are usually caregivers. And it's not that these girls, I don't know if I get an example, because I have the name, but I don't have the family names. But I cannot remember the name of this actress. It was Ada Lamar. Yeah, this actress, Ada Lamar, she was an actress. She was very beautiful, actually. And she invented Wi-Fi. And many girls don't know about it. And she could be a reference for all girls. For example, we have a biotechnologist in Léon, and she is an astronaut in the new European agency. Why we don't have all those references? If we increase the feminine presence in all these fields, well, we are missing that presence. There will be more reference for the United Nations, and it will be easier for women to incorporate in those fields. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say, because I totally agree with you. I think I would reflect on what I was talking about trade unions. What can workers do regarding this situation, regarding this topic? Of course, I totally agree. We need to help companies to generate wealth, to make money, of course, but of course we are in a moment of saying we need to find a balance. And there are many companies, like big technological companies, that don't allow this association, and this association is completely necessary. I could talk about the USA, the Amazon, and of course, workers are becoming aware of the need to join to several organizations to stop these companies. Of course, there must be a support for these companies to grow in an exponential way. It's very important so that these models can actually work, but we need to find a balance. We need to generate a new link, a relationship among workers. I have to say this is very similar to the Industrial Revolution period. I think there was a time, maybe I could talk about Europe, not about Spain. There were some people who were getting bored because everything was working properly, because capitalism was working well, but now we're not in that moment anymore. There are not people who must be explained, hey, you need to join, and maybe you need to think about how to improve your life quality. This is not about something that we should not do anymore. Many people in my generation cannot develop a decent life in Europe, and this cannot be the case anymore. This could not be happening because just a few people have the biggest amount of money, and there are some people who are becoming poor. And this is the reality right now. Some people cannot have a decent life. And I think Europe can be a reference to find the balance, and yeah, we could talk about it. And we could reflect about this topic. Yeah, of course, I totally agree with what you said, and I would like to emphasize on the gender topic regarding AI and IT. So, of course, we are now talking. We are very aware about technology, about masculinity, but masculinity and technology are together in the West world. We cannot understand them separately. And of course, in order to finish, I wouldn't say that we should incorporate more women. It's not about that. It's not about just that. We need to change things. And I think digital enlightenment is about this. I think the digital age should be about understanding technology. It's very important that caregivers have AI that is able to compute, prepare, to send a calculation, to send people to Mars, but we cannot replace the cares for children or people. So this is all about technology trying to solve men's problems. So this is a very complex situation because we can be here talking about it. We can agree or we cannot agree with several nonsense, but this is something that we have always been told, that technology and science are always neutral. They are something objective. When I was at the university, in the University Autonomous of Madrid, I was studying a science bachelor. I was in STEM. So students have several different subjects. So one of them is science and society. And these people who start their university studies and they say, hey, I want to learn about this critical thinking. I don't want to be stuck in just one knowledge. But actually that for them is very beneficial because they can get to know about technology, which is completely biased since the beginning. And this is something very difficult. This is something that it's happening, and we need to carry out that task in the digital enlightenment. We don't have to say that this is not something negative. We have to say that digital tools and technology tools are great and have achieved great things. But we need to address this aspect, and especially I say it because I think it is very important. We can totally agree with this, but this is not about everyone's interest. If we don't talk about the concepts and the terms of the digital enlightenment, other people will. In the year 2016, when Donald Trump was chosen as the American president, we could see that several studies were being polarized. I could see that we didn't talk about it in the European Union, in Spain. We didn't talk about it. But for example, in the USA, they were, because they have progressed more. Maybe they are not talking about it. Everyone is not talking about it. But actually, the people affected by this are talking about it, and they are going to vote, considering that. So we need to think of that. We need to know what's happening so that this discussion we are having is not polarized, and that we can have different opinions, which is something very important, and we can formulate the discussion concepts that we want to have, because otherwise all the people will. For example, now we have a new war. We have war equipment that are not useful anymore, but for example, small AI devices are showing what the wars in the future will look like, for example, with drones and everything. Are we jeopardizing our democracy? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that's what's happening right now. Yeah, we can see that. I don't think it is a coincidence that the growth of far right is happening at the same time as digital technologies are increasing. And that's what Lucia was saying. Who is leading the discussion, the debate? I think there are other people leading that. Did you finish? Okay, thank you, thank you. I just wanted to say, because I totally agree with Violeta, of course, but I wanted to focus on another question. So, are we jeopardizing our democracy with the decision, with the AI implementation? Yeah, of course. And that's why regulation is very important. But I would like to say that ethics don't finish with rules. We need to go one step forward. We need a society that has knowledge, the information, because our rights and freedom might be violated. Our freedom is in danger. Our gender equality situation is being jeopardized. So the capacity that people usually have, for example, for you to have an idea about the different environments where we discuss to get clear ideas, but we can see that there is an increase in misinformation. So I think artificial intelligence is very important in this regard. For example, Jonas was talking about it. We have our smartphones listening to us. And if citizens were completely aware, for example, we're completely aware of the impact of listening to a Spotify song, because the companies can get about information about our sexual life. And maybe if we were aware of that, we would act differently. So, for example, our democracy is jeopardized, of course, and this is linked to the lack of information, and society are not well informed. So this is very important, and that's why we are talking here about it. And I think the European Union is working on this. I don't think it is going to be enough. I'm not saying it's going to be enough, but actually it's important to say that we should admire the European Union, because the European Union is working on this. I don't think all the countries are discussing about it. Of course, we can see that the European Union is working, and this is very important because we are seeing the red lights, and we need to start working on them at a democratic level. So, for example, there are some decisions that, of course, citizens must be aware for making decisions that imply a democracy with one specific quality or with another specific quality. For example, basic things such as freedom. And those concepts, I really like them because I like talking about the political history. For example, we usually talk about freedom, and actually it impacted the elections in the community of Madrid. So our idea of freedom, that's essential for the building of a democracy. If we don't understand democracy the same way that liberalism understands it, yeah, that's very important because we can think about it in another way. We need to reflect on our idea of freedom. Maybe this is not about me not being able to buy something tomorrow, but this is about wondering, do I have, can I make my own decisions? Am I free to take part in the public situations, in the political decisions that affect my life? This is not the freedom that we have nowadays, but this is freedom that it is essential for the well functioning of democracy. And with surveillance capitalism, right now we cannot make decisions. We cannot choose if information is going to be protected or not. Yeah. You're talking about freedom, of course, and that must always be associated with responsibility. Many people have died at the name of freedom, and we should wonder about why. What's freedom for me and freedom for the others? We are trying to live in a very individualist situation, and this shouldn't be the case anymore. And now we are starting to become aware of this problem, and we can change that because we are becoming aware. So coming back to the topic of discussion, and in order to finish with this part, I think you're great speakers. I'm learning a lot from you, and that's great for me. But I would like to keep talking a little bit about the topic of the panel, and I would like to keep talking about the digital enlightenment. For me, it's great that we started with that concept of enlightenment because the society is being formed and they are making the proper decisions. But with regards to training, that must be related to awareness. We ought to also talk about it. We should not talk about it in technical questions because we need to incorporate within that training. We need to create that critical thinking that we were talking about so that people are aware and know that with that training and with that access to digital tools can reach whatever they want and that they can make the decision for whatever they want. But when it comes to the digital alignment, of course, through training, we need to do that. But we need to raise awareness and we need to be aware of all those problems. So, Jonas, we are like in the final part of the workshop. We cannot hear you. Of course, this is very important. It's been great to know about these democratic challenges. Democratization is based on the government of the majority. It might have an influence in the voting elections. But democracy is also related to the individual human rights protection. So it's very important the situation is very stable. And we are saying that privacy is being destroyed. Freedom as well. And that has an impact in the liberal democracy. But actually, Europe is taking it seriously. Europe wants to develop artificial intelligence. As I said first, we're one step behind. But we can work on it. Because we require a regulation framework that is strict and clear, that is human-centric. And of course, we need a regulation that allows to make use of artificial intelligence and that we can reduce the risks of artificial intelligence. So thank you very much. It was an honor. So Jonas, you would talk in the conclusion part, and thank you very much.
Welcome back to all of you. I do hope that you all had a very fruitful and engaging debate. This is the moment where I actually now give the floor to each country. Of course, the MEP of each country participating will give us an overview of what the main fruit of that debate, of course, was today. We have around 5 to 6 minutes each to share between each country, and then of course we will have our final and concluding remarks. I would like to start with Malta, since we are here. Alex, I'll give the floor to you. Please do let us know, let the rest of the people know watching us what this debate in Malta here was about.
So first of all, we had a very interesting debate. Thanks a lot to all the panelists and also to academics and also other stakeholders who participated in this very insightful discussion. We tackled one of the most important aspects of the AI Act. It is useless to do all these safeguards without having a mechanism to be able to enforce what we are putting down on paper. And enforcement, redress are fundamental elements in this concept. I think that our discussion related about the importance of having a human-centric approach, which is totally in line with the priorities of our political family, with the priorities of the S&D political family, and we touched upon the importance ultimately to have more awareness from our users, from our consumers, to be able to enforce their rights. Again, it is useless to have all these mechanisms in place without having a situation whereby our citizens will be aware on what is going on, therefore the importance of having information, therefore the importance of having explainability, and we touched a lot upon the issue of explainability, the complex systems of AI, the intrinsic use of data, and the difficulties that we have ultimately also to pinpoint our fingers on what is going on and who actually is having this responsibility. So ultimately, this was a discussion dealing with not only the initial draft deals with the issue of public enforcement. We want to take it stepping it up. Also to give more tools for our citizens, for our users, for our consumers to be able ultimately to enforce these rights that we have in this AI Act. Again, I want to thank all the panelists. I think it was a very informative discussion, and we try to dissect as much as possible this very complex piece of legislation. Now, I believe we are in the 10th, 11th draft. During the negotiations, the draft is always building up with more ambitions, and I would also like to thank all my colleagues. Some of them are here leading other panels. Brando Benefei, who is our co-rapporteur in the Internal Market Committee, our shadow rapporteur in the LIBE Committee, and also Crystal Schaldemose, who worked on another piece of legislation as rapporteur, the Digital Markets Act, which is also working in tandem, will be working in tandem with the AI Act ultimately to create a safer ecosystem, a more transparent ecosystem for our consumers, for our users, ultimately because we want that our users and consumers have more trust in the system. And we believe that if we give all these tools to our citizens, to our users and consumers, the trust will be bigger in AI systems which are conditioning our lives.
Thank you very much, Alex. I move to Italy now, and I invite Brando to share with us the fruit, the conclusions of the debate which you had in Italy. Brando?
Yes. Yes, thank you. We had a very good discussion about the risks and opportunities of AI, especially looking at the need for procedures that can involve citizens, that can give them trust in the system, and also we reflected on the frame around AI, what it means, what is the kind of discussion that we are having. We have delved into some details of the negotiations we are doing about the fundamental rights impact assessment, the prohibitions on some part of the emotional recognition, the predictive policing, the biometric recognition for surveillance purposes. So we have looked at how we are trying to protect our citizens, how to avoid unnecessary risks, and we have concluded that we need people to be able to say what they really want. The technology should not be imposed, but it should be something that is part of the choice in a democratic context.
Thank you, Brando. So you left from the AI being the intruder, the grande fratello, to amici, correct?
I know, yeah.
We watch a lot of Italian television, so of course for us, amici is friends. We want AI to be our friend. you, Brando. Thank you very, very much. I now move to Denmark. Christel, how has your debate been, Christel?
Well, the debate was really, really good, and I have taken a lot of notes, and I can already tell Alex and Brando that we still have some work to do until we have made this AI Act perfect. So, but let me try to come up with a couple of things we discussed. First and foremost, we have this risk-based approach from the AI proposal from the Commission, and we discussed, is that really necessary to have that in all? For instance, if you use algorithms in the airport to place bins, to do it in the right manner, is that a real risk? Should we even use our common principles? Does that really make sense for something that is not, or apparently not, as dangerous? So we discussed that, but we also discussed how can we avoid bias in many of the systems. We had a lot of very, very good examples on concrete, how we already today use AI. For instance, we have a very famous example in Denmark when they call 112. They use algorithms to help the doctor to come up with a diagnosis, and that is a very good example of where it works. But how can we make sure that it is not going to be overburdened? We also talked about this, about explainability. How can we make that work in a good manner? Sometimes the professors told me that we cannot always explain the algorithm in a good manner, but it works. So what if we do it like when we work with medicine, where we don't actually always know why this medicine works, but we know from clinical research that it does work without too many side effects. Maybe if that's the same on AI, could we live with that? But on the other hand, we also think that it is very important that we have right to complain. Where do we do that? So we have had a lot of good examples, and we still need to do more to make sure that it works. But we also talked about that we need to be cautious about putting too many rules and regulations into this proposal, because it needs to be workable as well. So bureaucracy, no thanks. But on the other hand, we also know that we need to be able to go back and look what worked and what didn't work, and learn from that. But we are only in the beginning of this. Yeah, well, there was in fact also a very good example on why don't we talk more about how we use AI in the everyday life. The financial, the security, the insurance sector, etc. So we need to look into that as well. So we still have some work to do, but it was very inspiring, and I have learned a lot. And if I should have one sentence to conclude, is that it is extremely complex.
Yes, yes. It's true. I think, thank you, Christel, that was something that came across here. And probably Jonas, who were addressing their workshop on the education aspect of AI, can enlighten us with some of the things that came up in the workshop. Of course, this education is something that is going to have to be implemented across all countries. But please, Jonas, do let us know how the debate went in your country.
Hello, good evening again, and maybe the word that you said, enlightenment, I think that it represents the debate that we had. I would like to congratulate, of course, Lucia, Victoria, Violeta, and Javi. The debate was really inspired, really interesting, and I think that at least I learned so much on this matter, because as you know, Ivan has to be here today in the debate, and if the word is enlightenment, I would like to go back to a sentence that I always listen to Ivan, because Ivan always say that we are entering in a new age of digital enlightenment, and I think that maybe these four words could represent the risk and the opportunity that we face with the evolution of the AI. And in the debate, we decided, we debated that the European Union should become global leader in AI, and the European Union should pioneer a regulatory framework on this matter, the first of this kind in the world, as we did in other aspects, in other sectors in the past, as we do every day. which will champion human-centric, as my friend Brando said before me, anchors in human rights and guided by ethical guidance. So we want an IA that will be for the common good and will serve the people and the society as a whole. Europe must promote international standards based on the respect of human rights, democracy, the rule of law, and in line with the principles of human oversight, fairness, accountability, and transparency. In the debate, we analyze how we could improve the level of the education. We analyze the difference inequalities that there are also in the developing of the AIA. There are territorial and physical inequalities, gender inequalities, race inequalities or income inequalities, and I think that we as social democrats will have to take time also to analyze the impact, the redistributional impact of these new technologies in our life. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. Take care, Ivan. Thank you so much for the debate, and I am sure that next week in Brussels or in Vienna we will come back to our work to develop this new regulatory chapter on AA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you all for your contribution. Do stay with us. We have now concluding remarks both from Alex and Brando. Let's start with Alex. Alex, first of all, before I come to the question I have, what curiosity do you have now about each debate that went on in other countries from the little you've heard?
I think that we are very much on the board when it comes to the negotiations, when it comes to our priorities as an S&D family, with all our rapporteurs in, if I'm not mistaken, 5 different committees in the European Parliament, apart from the 2 main committees. So what the academics, what the civil society has told us today is ultimately being already reflected, and we will continue to reflect on that in what we are going to continue to do in the next couple of weeks until we conclude the first part of the negotiations, to have a solid position in the EP, ultimately, a position which will work not in favor of big tech companies, but will be working in favor of our citizens and our consumers. So these discussions are of utmost importance for us, because it's always a learning curve to have an open door policy, and this is our political family. It's a political family of an open door policy, to continue to listen, to learn, to get the feedback from our citizens, to implement it in European Union legislation, which is novel legislation, not only at EU level, but also at an international level.
Thank you. How do you see the impact of the Social Democrats in the European Parliament when it comes to this piece of legislation? And also, what have you been doing in order to coordinate this common approach amongst other members?
So first of all, this is a very exciting time for us as an S&D political family, especially when it comes to the digital portfolios. Next week in Vienna, in our external group meeting, we will be approving our revised S&D digital policy paper, a 45-pager, which is, let's put it like that, our Bible when it comes to digital policy, touching from cybersecurity, touching to the AI Act. We have a whole chapter dealing with AI, touching upon data and all the aspects that we are dealing in right now at an EU level, and also our ambition of what we want to see during this legislature and also in the next legislatures. So, as I said in my remarks, we are trying to keep an open approach as much as possible. As an S&D political family, we are leaders when it comes to the biggest digital pieces of legislations. We are leaders in the Digital Services Act, in the Digital Markets Act. When it came to the GDPR, we introduced a number of concepts. We were leaders when it came to other pieces of legislation which are bringing a change in people's lives, such as the universal charger. And we will continue to do so. And we can continue to do so by maintaining this open approach, by listening, by continuing to increase our outreach, not only remaining in the Brussels bubble, but going directly, as we are doing today, in each and every member state. But before I conclude, I would like to thank the S&D Secretariat, our staff in the digital Europe working group, our communications team. This is a first also for our political family, whereby we have an activity like this which is connected at the same time with 4 discussions taking place in 4 different member states. I think and I believe that this will not be the first, that this will only be the first. We will be having a lot more of these events to engage as much as possible in an open way with our citizens, with our stakeholders, with experts at member state level to bring it right. Because when it comes to digital, we have big responsibility on our shoulders, not just to regulate, not just to move forward legislation, but to do it in the right way, to do it in a way that will strengthen our values and ultimately protect our citizens.
Very good. Thank you, Alex. I move to Brando in Italy. Brando, in particular to you, what are the next steps, and are you confident that your political group will be successful in getting these priorities across the finish line?
Yes, I am, I would say, cautiously optimistic, because I see that the negotiations in the parliament are going well. We see that the parliament is mostly united in many of the crucial aspects. In fact, one topic that was discussed more in the Malta seminar, the one about the governance, is one of the topics where there are more differences in the approaches of the parliamentarians. But globally, I would say the parliament is quite united in defending a human-centric approach to AI. My worry is more the negotiation with the Council, because I see the different approach when we look at the personal freedoms and the use of this instrument for social control. So we will need to be very strong, with a strong lead by our group when we will negotiate in the next months. I am optimistic that we can get a good result that can be useful for all European citizens.
Thank you very much, Brando. I think that brings us to the conclusion of today. One final question that I have. If today there were participants out there being engaged like I was, I'm not directly involved, but it was extremely interesting to hear all of you talk, and I would love for all this to be simplified in a way that I can understand it. And when my 6-year-old comes to me and tells me, "Mom, the phone brought up something that I was talking about," just like you said, I know what to answer him and how he can feel protected, that this is the way forward. So I would like to see how we can continue being engaged in what's going on at a European level through what groups or contacts that I can refer to.
First of all these discussions will be all online on all the S&D platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on all our channels. So all those who wanted to follow the 4 discussions, 4 very interesting discussions that we had, but they had to follow the one discussion or the discussion in Italy without being able also to follow the other discussions. All of these discussions are recorded and will be on all our platforms. We are a very open political group. Our channels, online channels, are very active. We are pushing forward a lot of material and also explaining in non-technical terms what are we doing with these very complex pieces of legislation, so that our citizens can better understand what we are doing. But ultimately, they can ask us all the questions that they want. Our channels are always open. Our MEPs are always replying and interacting with our citizens. So feel free, if you have any questions, our channels are there. First of all, like, follow all our channels, and you can also ask and interact directly with our members.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you to all the panelists. Alexei for moderating such an interesting panel, and of course the audience for being here. And my thanks goes to also to all those who participated in Italy, in Denmark, and in Spain. Thank you very much for asking me to host this incredibly interesting workshop today, which was hybrid, and I hope to see you all again in the future events that S&D Group will be organizing. Wish you all a very good night. Thank you.
A correr. Sí.
Ay, a mí es que se me ha enganchado con el pendiente.
Anda, cuidado, cuidado, que igual te la lías.
Es que no se me ha caído. O sea, cuando estaba en algún momento. Mira, si me lo pides, pues.
Ay, perdón.
Pero lo tenemos, mañana mando un mensaje. Claro.
Lo que pasa es que de tanto escuchar a Iván, estaba pensando, ¿a qué dicen esto? ¿A qué dicen esto?
Ay, sí, un segundo. Mira, me lo miro yo con el móvil, con el espejo.
¿Quieres?
Sí.
Espera, que te lo... Espera.
Ahora ya me he sacado yo. Listo. Y el otro, a ver. Es que tienes el pelo aquí. Sí. Es que no sé. Mira, me quedo pendiente.
¿Quieres verlo?
No te preocupes, voy a quedar pendiente.